Welcome to Millennium TV 24. I am Kim Seabrook. And in Brooklyn, the driver is under arrest and 3 people were hurt during a rally on the Brooklyn Bridge that marked the 1 year since the death of George Floyd on Tuesday. Demonstrators were marching in the driving lane of the span when one driver tried to get around or get through the crowd by slowly driving toward them. That's when authorities say one demonstrator jumped on the hood of the car and the driver attempted to take off and struck another demonstrator on his way. Police say that the driver kept going for a few blocks and that was with the demonstrator still on the hood of the car when the car struck a bicyclist. Police say the 21-year-old driver was arrested and taken into custody. His charges are pending. The rally on the Brooklyn Bridge was one in which thousands took to the streets as large demonstrations took place all throughout Brooklyn, from Camden Plaza, Barclays Center, and outside the Brooklyn Museum. Some called it a day of action and remembrance to mark the death of George Floyd, which led to the start of a worldwide civil rights movement. Yes, and next, Daniel Shakal arrested in back-to-back anti-Semitic attacks in Brooklyn. A 20-year-old suspect in several anti-Semitic attacks is under arrest and facing hate crime charges. It comes amid a rising number of such crimes in the city. The latest target was a kosher pizza shop in Manhattan. And someone had also stated that you understand the problem right now. That was shop manager Mauricio Liajo. The problem is hate, and it quite literally showed up at the door of the pizzeria on Tuesday morning. The manager at Sabo's Pizza on Lexington Avenue was one of the first to see the mess left behind a brick thrown through the glass of his Upper East Side shop. This is just abominable. So much hate going on, the manager said. I'm shocked. I'm disgusted. Somebody I worked with said she doesn't even feel comfortable wearing her Jewish star. And that is in around the area in Chelsea area. It was the latest in a string of anti-Semitic crimes across the city. The NYPD says there have been 80 such crimes so far this year compared to 62 at this time last year. Mayor de Blasio reminded New Yorkers they'll see extra police outside Jewish houses of worship after a show on Staten Island was vandalized on Monday. That incident is unacceptable. Anyone who commits a hate crime, we're going to find them. And that is what the mayor said. The New York NYPD Hate Crime Task Force says it has found one of the men involved in an attack on Jewish teens in Borough Park, Brooklyn last weekend. Daniel Shakal, 20, of Brooklyn, was arrested and charged with aggravated harassment. In addition, the suspect seen and heard going on a tirade in front of a synagogue on Avenue S in Brooklyn was also apprehended. He was seen throwing a punch at one of the members, a 67-year-old federal agent in uniform. In that case, the victim lives only feet away from where he was punched in the face. He was released from the hospital and told us that he's okay. Neighbors, however, remain shaken up and worried about each other. And next, what we have, workers circle to pay tribute to New York's frontline workers. As we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, the Workers Circle will pay tribute to frontline workers for their unwavering courage. Presenting an inaugural Heroes of the Workforce Arbiters Helden Award to the New York Professional Nurses Union. And that's going to be held on October 7th, 2021. And they represent the nurses of New York City's Lenox Hill Hospital, one of the first hospitals in the U.S. to find themselves on the front line of the pandemic with their ER and units rapidly filling beginning last March. Because of those workers, those represented by the NYPNU, many more people are alive today. We owe a debt of gratitude to all of those here in New York City and across our country who valiantly served on the front lines of this pandemic. And that was from the CEO and Executive Director of Workers Circle. In particular, we recognize the NYPNU nurses for their unwavering courage in the past months and their commitment to providing life-saving care and support to thousands of patients. The organization's first ever virtual benefit will be held at 8 p.m., that's Eastern Standard Time, with a special VIP event for sponsors. And that's going to be, the event will feature top-notch musical entertainment, special guests, and other surprises. While the event is free, the Workers Circle encourages donation to support the organization's youth activism programs. And next, more Asians believe anti-Asian hate rising as a majority of Americans across racial and ethnic groups believe discrimination has worsened in the last year against Asian Americans, who became the target of attacks after being unfairly blamed for the coronavirus pandemic. A poll finds 60% of Americans say discrimination against Asian Americans has swelled compared with a year ago, including 71% of Asian Americans, 66% of Black, 59% of white Americans, and 55% of Hispanic Americans. Nearly half of Americans believe Asians encounter a great deal or quite a lot of discrimination in the U.S. today. The poll also finds about 6 in 10 Americans say racism in the U.S. is general, a very or extremely serious problem. And the majority of Asian Americans say they feel unsafe in public because of their race. Close to half of Americans are very or extremely concerned that incidents of violence targeting Asian Americans have increased because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that was according to the poll, including about 2/3 of Asian Americans. President Joe Biden last week signed the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. The legislation will put a Justice Department official in charge of a review of anti-Asian hate crimes and will allot federal grants for law enforcement training and hate crime hotlines. I hope they include, do something for Black Americans as well, for the racial injustices that they receive as well. And next, we have the Republicans revive negotiations over President Joe Biden's sweeping investment plan, preparing a $1 trillion infrastructure proposal that would be funded with COVID-19 relief money as a counteroffer to the White House ahead of a Memorial Day deadline toward a bipartisan deal. The Republicans said Tuesday they would disclose details of the new offer by Thursday. Sounding upbeat after both sides had panned other offers, at the White House, Press Secretary Jen Psaki declined to address the new plan, but also said, "We expect this week to be a week of progress." Talks over the infrastructure investment are at a crossroads as Biden reaches for a top legislative priority. The White House is assessing whether the president can strike a bipartisan deal with Republicans on his American Jobs Plan, or whether he would try to go for it alone with Democrats if no progress is made in the days ahead. Yet the administration and the GOP senators remain far apart over the size and scope of the investment needed to reboot the nation's roads, bridges, and broadband. But also, as Biden sees it, the child care centers and green energy investments needed for a 21st century economy. They also can't agree on how to pay for it. The administration is signaling that it's important not just whether Biden can push his infrastructure and other proposals into law, but also how he does it. By this reasoning, voters and some moderate Democratic lawmakers are more likely to be on board if Biden at least tries for bipartisanship. The West Wing believes its bargaining position is strong, and the aides point to Biden's high poll numbers and the popularity of his proposals, all while believing that they have the option of muscling the infrastructure plan to passage under special budget reconciliation rules that require only a party line vote. But there is a growing sense of urgency within the White House and among Democrats. After a burst of legislative accomplishments, including the COVID-19 relief bill, the pace has slowed dramatically, and the future may hinge on a few select senators. Psaki insisted no decision had been made on whether the administration will go it alone as it awaits a counteroffer from Republicans. "We're not quite there yet," she said. All right. And the vaccine inequality in India sends many falling through gaps. As the coronavirus tears through India, night watchman Sagar Kumar thinks constantly about getting vaccines for himself and his family of 5 amid critical shortages of shots in the country. But even if he knew how to get one, it wouldn't be easy. The main way is to register through a government website. but it is in English, a language the 25-year-old Kumar and nearly 90% of Indians can't speak, read, or write. And his family has a single smartphone with spotty internet service. And even though his state of Uttar Pradesh gives free shots to those under 45, there is no vaccination site in his village, with the nearest hospital an hour away. All I could do now is hope for the best, Kumar said. The pandemic disparities already were stark in India, where access to healthcare is as stratified and unequal as many parts of society. Now, wealth and technology is further widening those chasms, and millions are falling through the gaps. India's vaccination campaign began in January with the goal of inoculating 300 million of its nearly 1.4 billion people by August. So far, it has fully vaccinated a little over 42 million people, or barely 3% of its population. The government didn't reserve enough shots for the campaign, and it was slow to scale up vaccine production. Then, when the country recording hundreds of thousands of new infections daily, the government on May 1st opened up vaccination to all adults. That made an already bad shortage even worse. Amid those challenges, the federal government also changed its policy on who can get the vaccines and who must pay for them. It allotted itself half of the shots in the country and said it will give free shots to frontline workers and those 45 and older. Individual states and private hospitals could then negotiate deals with the country's vaccine makers for the other half of the shots, the government said. That effectively put the burden for inoculating everyone under 45 on states and the private sector, who often ask members of the public to pay as much as $20 for a shot. The disparities already are showing in rich states where private hospitals tend to be concentrated. And next, we have 3 arrested in Italy. A funicular crash clamped deactivated brake. Police arrested 3 people Wednesday in the cable car disaster that killed 14 people in northern Italy, saying workers placed a clamp on the emergency brake to deactivate it as a patchwork repair. One that prevented the brake from engaging when the lead cable snapped. The revelations obtained during an overnight police interrogation of the suspects turned the horror of Sunday's disaster into outrage, given the tragedy appeared to have been entirely preventable. And prosecutor Olympia Boss hypothesized that the operators of the sightseeing funicular, which had reopened after a wintertime COVID-19 closure, used the jerry-rigged clamp to avoid having to shut the attraction for the more extensive radical repairs that were necessary. Bossy said it still wasn't clear why the lead cable broke or whether it was related to the brake problem. But she also stated that the intentional deactivation of the brake, done several times over recent weeks for a persistent problem, prevented the brake from doing its job when the cable snapped. After the lead cable broke Sunday, the cabin reeled back down the line until it hit the pylon and pulled off entirely. It crashed to the ground and rolled over down the mountainside until it came to rest against some trees. 14 people were killed. The lone survivor, a 5-year-old boy, remains hospitalized. And yes, we are going to go into a break. My name is Kim Seabrook. We are Millennium TV 24. I'll be right back.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV. Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Okay, and we are back. I'm Kim Seabrook with Millennium TV 24. And back into that story where we left off. They were talking about the break was engaging spontaneously and preventing the funicular from working. The cable car line reopened April 26 and was bringing sightseers to the top of Marlborough Peak, overlooking Lake Maggiore on the first sunny Sunday since then. The jerry-rigged clamp was still in place on the break Sunday morning, citing information gleaned from the suspects themselves. Because of a malfunction, the brake was continuing to engage even when it wasn't supposed to, Signoni told us. So to prevent the cabin from halting during the transport of passengers, they chose to not remove the dispositive that blocked the emergency brake. In this way, the brake couldn't function, and this brought about the fact that when the cable broke, the cabin fell backwards, he said. And what else? And Sky and agency identified the 3 people arrested as the owner of the cable car service, the company's director, and the service chief. Bossy, the Romania prosecutor heading the investigation, said the deactivation of the brake was clearly designed as a stopgap measure to allow the funicular to continue operating. She told reporters that investigators think it was done with the full knowledge of the cable car company's owners. The investigation was continuing, but the mayor of the hometown of one of the victims, Serena Costantino, announced that the city would pursue legal action against those responsible. He said the city of Diamante in southern Calabria would present itself as an injured party in the civil portion of any possible prosecution. The news, unfortunately, is showing a broad picture of responsibility and omissive guilt. Mayor Ernesto said in a statement that the developments in the investigation came as doctors at Turin's Regina Margherita Pediatric Hospital reported that the lone survivor of the disaster was a 5-year-old, Eden Baran. He had begun to open his eyes after they gradually brought him out of sedation. Baran suffered several broken bones in the crash, which killed his parents, younger brother, and great-grandparents. An aunt who was not in the cable car is with him at the hospital. The Israeli family had been living in Italy, and on Wednesday, members of the area's Jewish community attended a prayer ceremony for the victims. Wow. And Blinken arrives in Egypt to shore up Gaza ceasefire efforts. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Egypt on Wednesday as he pressed ahead with a diplomatic mission aimed at shoring up a ceasefire that ended an 11-day war between Israel and the Gaza Strip ruling Hamas militant group. Blinken landed in Cairo a day after holding intensive talks with Israeli and Palestinian leaders. In Egypt, he met with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and other top officials. Later, he was to travel to Jordan to meet with King Abdullah II, and Blinken was vowed to rally international support to rebuild the destruction in hard-hit Gaza, while promising to make sure that none of the aid reaches Hamas. He is insisted trying to bolster Hamas rival the internationally recognized Palestinian Authority. Blinken described Egypt and Jordan as central players in trying to bring calm to the region. Both countries are key U.S. allies that have peace agreements with Israel and frequently serve as mediators between Israel and the Palestinians. Egypt played a critical role in helping to broker the ceasefire, and Jordan has long been a voice for peace and stability in the region, he told us. And Egypt maintains ties with Hamas, but also enforces a tight blockade on Gaza, along with Israel, with a shared goal of preventing the Islamic group from arming. Blinken has set modest goals for the trip, his first official visit to the Middle East as Secretary of State. The stop in Cairo, along with President Joe Biden's phone talks with el-Sisi, while the ceasefire was being negotiated last week, signal a closer relationship between the Biden administration and Egypt after a cooler beginning, when it expressed concern over el-Sisi's human rights record. During talks with Israeli and Palestinian leaders on Tuesday, he made clear that the U.S. has no immediate plans to pursue peace talks between the sides. though he expressed hope for creating a better environment that might lead to negotiations that could begin with Gaza reconstruction effort. The 11-day war killed more than 250 people, mostly Palestinians, and caused heavy destruction in the impoverished coastal territory. Preliminary estimates have put the damage in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Ahmed Al-Bul, Secretary General of the Arab League, said U.S. commitment is critical for the region. But before the Gaza war, the Biden administration had kept its distance, preferring to focus on higher foreign policy priorities like China and Iran. And the two parties of the conflict are unable on their own to sit on a negotiating table, and the gap between them has widened more than ever. Abdul Gate, and he is a former Egyptian foreign minister, and he told us that in the absence of an effective role for the U.S., we should expect nothing but more cycles of violence and bloodshed of innocent people. Corruption trial of former South African president starts. The corruption trial of former South African president Jacob Zuma began Wednesday, more than 25 years after some of his alleged offenses. Zuma, who was president from 2009 until he was forced out in 2018 amid multiple grave scandals, pleaded not guilty to corruption, racketeering, fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering at Pietermaritzburg High Court. Among the charges, Zuma is accused of taking bribes from French company Thales to ensure that South Africa signed a multi-billion-dollar arms deal with the company in 1999. Zuma was deputy president of South Africa from 1999 to 2005 when he was fired from that role amid allegations of corruption. Thales, also accused in the trial, pleaded not guilty to racketeering and money laundering. Zuma was first implicated in corruption by prosecutors in 2005, but charges against him have dropped and reinstated several times over the years amid allegations of political interference. Most recently, they were reinstated in 2018. Some of the charges against the 79-year-old Zuma date back to the mid-1990s. Prosecutors alleged between 1995 and 2001, Zuma and Thales were involved in an organized criminal enterprise. They also accused Zuma of taking bribes from a former financial advisor as far back as 1995 in exchange for political power to advance the advisor's business interests. That corrupt relationship lasted for 10 years, prosecutors said. Zuma could be jailed for 25 years if convicted. And on Wednesday, Zuma's lawyer filed papers calling for the removal of the chief prosecutor in the case, claiming he was biased and Zuma was right to a fair trial was threatened. The judge said he would consider the application. But Zuma is also facing allegations of corruption while he was president at a separate and ongoing state inquiry into widespread government graft. Zuma has been ordered to appear and testify, but has refused to do so. And that's leading the judge overseeing the inquiry to ask South Africa's highest court to jail Zuma for 2 years for contempt of court. Also in Africa, Zimbabwe unveiled statue honoring anti-colonialist heroine Zimbabwe's president on Tuesday. They unveiled a towering bronze statue in the center of Harare, the capital, honoring a 19th century black anti-colonialist heroine who was hanged for leading a rebellion against white occupation. President Emerson vowed to press for the return of her skull from Britain. Nahanda Shawe, more widely known as Mayuba, grandmother in Shono, Nahanda was hanged in 1898 for leading an anti-colonial rebellion. She was an influential spirit medium who rallied people to fight against the seizure of their land by colonialists. After her death, Nahanda became a symbol of resistance and inspiration for the 1970s Bush War that brought an end to the white minority rule country of Rhodesia and led to a majority rule and the independence of Zimbabwe in 1980. Mugawa presided over the unveiling of the statue, more than 3 meters high, at a major intersection in Harare, close to the place where Nahanda was hanged. The event was held to mark the Africa Day holiday. The statue of Nahanda is a declaration that we stand proud of our history and identity. Nationalists still say her name to evoke a spirit of patriotism and a major road and maternity wing of one of the South African country's biggest hospitals in the capital. Harare are named after her. Zimbabwe, like some other African countries, has been trying to get European museums to return skulls and other items shipped there as a part of war trophies during colonialism. And next in financial, Amazon to buy MGM studio behind James Bond and Shark Tank. Online shopping giant Amazon is buying MGM, the movie and TV studio behind James Bond, Legally Blonde, and Shark Tank, with the hopes of filling its video streaming service with more stuff to watch. Amazon is paying $8.45 billion for MGM, making this the company's second largest acquisition after it bought grocer Whole Foods for nearly $14 billion in 2017. The deal is the latest in the media industry that's aimed at boosting streaming services to compete against Netflix and Disney+. AT&T and Discovery announced on May 17th that they will combine media companies, creating a powerhouse that includes HGTV, CNN, Food Network, and HBO. Amazon doesn't say how many people watch this Prime Video service, but more than 200 million have access to it because they're signed up for its Prime membership, which gives them faster shipping and other perks. But besides Prime Video, Amazon also has a free streaming service called IMDb TV, where Amazon makes money by playing ads during movies and shows. Buying MGM would give Amazon access to more films, shows, and famous characters, including Rocky, RoboCop, and Pink Panther. Amazon will also get a cable channel, Epix, which MGM owns. Known for its Roaring Lion logo, MGM is one of the oldest Hollywood studios, founded in 1924 when films were silent. And the library also includes Singing in the Rain. More recent productions include reality TV staples Shark Tank and The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, as well as upcoming James Bond movies, No Time to Die, and an Aretha Franklin biopic called Respect. Amazon already has its own studio, but has had mixed results. Two of its shows, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and Fleabag, won Best Comedy Series Emmys. Although it's won several Oscars, including most recently for Sound of Metal, many of its films have failed to click with audience at the box office. But recently, Amazon has been spending on sports and splashy shows. It will stream Thursday Night Football next year and is producing a Lord of the Rings show, which reportedly cost $450 million for its first season alone. The deal, which is subject to customary approvals, will make Amazon, already one of the most powerful and valuable companies in the world, even bigger. Regulators around the world are scrutinizing Amazon's business practices, specifically the way it looks at information from businesses that sell goods on its site and uses its own to create Amazon branded products. Ooh, that's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. And a report on the House committee in October called for a possible breakup of Amazon and others, making it harder for them to buy other businesses and imposing new rules to safeguard competition. Amazon, founded in 1995 as an online bookstore, has become a $1.6 trillion. That does a little bit of everything. It has a delivery business network that gets orders to people in 2 days or sooner, sells inhalers and insulin, has a cloud computing business that powers the apps of Netflix and McDonald's, and has plans to send more than 3,200 satellites into space to beam internet service to Earth. Go ahead now. All right. How vaccine passports for global travels will work, and is keen to avoid losing another summer of holiday revenue to the coronavirus pandemic. The European Union, some Asian governments, and the airline industry are scrambling to develop so-called COVID-19 vaccine passports to help kickstart international travel. All right, so this is it. They're working on systems that would allow travelers to use mobile phone apps to prove they've been vaccinated, which could help them avoid onerous quarantine requirements at their destinations. But the multiple efforts underscore the lack of one central international system to electronically verify vaccination status. The project also faced technical challenges in working together. while questions about privacy and vaccine inequality linger. So vaccination passports will add another digital layer to the multitude of existing coronavirus health and contact tracing apps many countries and the U.S. states have rolled out. Their use domestically to reopen local economies has been hotly debated, with many opposed to requiring them for pubs, concerts, and sporting events. However, there's more momentum to use them for international travel, especially as countries like Iceland open their borders to vaccinated visitors and others like Saudi Arabia started allowing vaccinated citizens to travel abroad. The EU's decision last week to open its borders to fully vaccinated travelers adds even more urgency. So here's a look at how the vaccine passports will work. All right, let's get into it. So the first part of the vaccination passport is the user's official or approved electronic immunization record. The European Union, China, and Japan are all working on their own digital vaccination certificates for cross-border travel. The UK, meanwhile, updated its National Health Service app last week to let fully vaccinated users prove their status when traveling abroad, coinciding with an easing of travel rules. Testing is underway for the EU's digital certificate, which will also confirm COVID-19 test results or recovery from the virus, and is set to go live by the end of June, allowing residents to reunite with friends and relatives living across 30 European countries. It's still unclear where and how exactly travelers in the EU, which doesn't have internal border checkpoints, will have their certificates checked. But officials in Brussels say that will be up to the individual countries. The idea is that the travelers will flash a QR code on their phone so it can be scanned at, say, at an airport or train station using an official verification app that checks with national database via an EU technical gateway. And the World Health Organization doesn't recommend vaccination proof as a requirement for international traveling, citing unequal distribution of vaccines, even as it consults on interim guidance for developing a smart vaccination certificate. So there's going to be travel apps, and travelers also need a smartphone app to carry any eventual official vaccination certificates. Travelers can already use the app to verify their COVID-19 test results are accepted at their destination. Travel Pass and Common Pass are so far only available to travelers on the airlines that are using them. All right, so now we also have to be concerned about the fakes. The phony paper COVID-19 documents sold by fraudsters have also been a problem during the pandemic. But developers say digital versions have safeguards that make them hard to fake. IATA says it doesn't verify test results or vaccination status, but acts as the conduit for the registered labs to securely send those details to travelers who identify the app can match to the person who took the test or vaccination. The app scans a traveler face using the phone camera, and it also matches to the passport biometric details. And they are checks to prevent someone else using their identity. And I'm Kim Seabrook. We're on Millennium TV 24, and we're going to go on a quick break. I'll be right back. Pause it.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
And we are back. And in Belgium, they suspended J&J vaccine for under 41s after death. A person had received the shot recently, and the government said in a statement it was asking for urgent advice from the European Medicines Agency the European Union's drug regulator, before it would consider lifting the suspension. It added that the impact on the national vaccination drive would be very limited. Belgium was using the Johnson & Johnson vaccine for elderly with reduced mobility and the homeless, since it only takes one shot to be protected. Those shots will be continued. It said it took the action after a single case where there was serious side effects after administering the Jackson vaccine using the local name for the Johnson & Johnson shot. It said a woman was vaccinated through her foreign employer outside the Belgian system and had died in Belgium last week after developing serious thrombosis and reduced blood platelets. It also mentioned that it did not provide more information about the patient beyond saying that she was under 40. And in entertainment, Grammys changed rules for Album of the Year award. The Recording Academy has updated its rule for the Album of the Year Grammy, giving more producers and songwriters a better chance at winning the top award. So the Academy announced Wednesday that any producer, songwriter, engineer, or featured artist on an album nominated for Album of the Year would also earn a nomination, even if the music creator co-wrote one song on the 10-track project. So before the change, songwriters or producers would need to be credited with at least 33% or more playing time on the album to be eligible for a nomination. That's a rule implemented in 2017. But the new change reflects how the Grammys handled Album of the Year before 2017, when producers, engineers, or featured artists would earn a nomination for Album of the Year, even if they worked on one song. Songwriters were not included at the time and were added when the 2017 change was introduced. Now that all songwriters on an album could earn a nomination, the Academy can expect a larger number of nominees for each of the 8 albums competing for Album of the Year. So for instance, if Justin Bieber's Justice is nominated at the 2022 show, more than 50 creators will be nominated for the project. So if Ariana Grande's Positions earn a nod, more than 35 people will be nominated for the album. The change greatly affects rap, R&B, and some pop albums, where songwriters and producers typically vary throughout the project, as opposed to country and rock albums, where fewer creators are present. So what that changes gives rap and R&B producers and songwriters a stronger chance at earning a Grammy nomination, and also a chance at actually winning the top award seems less possible. And in sports, we got Davis Lakers. They bounced back to beat the Suns 109-102 in Game 2. The Los Angeles Lakers were reeling late in the fourth quarter on Tuesday night. The Phoenix Suns had made a big run with their home crowd, was in a frenzy, and the defending NBA champions were in the danger of going down 2-0 in the first round. LeBron James and Anthony Davis weren't about to let that happen. James made a turnaround 18-foot jumper. Davis followed with a three-pointer, and the Lakers held on a hard-fought 109-102 win over the Suns in Game 2 of the playoff series. This was a must-win, Davis said. We all came out with that mindset, and we're able to get the job done. It was a big bounce-back game for the Lakers, and especially Davis, who struggled in Game 1 and took personal responsibility for the team's 99-90 loss on Sunday. His crucial three-pointer with 2:15 left on Tuesday put Los Angeles up 98-92 and ended a late Suns rally. Davis made 18 of 21 free throws and added 10 rebounds and 7 assists. James added 23 points and 9 assists. And next, the Mavs beat the Clippers 127-121, taking the series in a 2.0 lead. So what's up? Mavs against outshot the NBA's best three-point team in a 127-121 victory over the Los Angeles Clippers on Tuesday night to take a 2.0 lead in the first round playoff series. We can't rest, Hardaway said. We know what they're capable of. Kristaps added 20 points and Maxi Kleber had 13. Hardaway hit a playoff career high 6 three-pointers, and Doncic had 5 at fifth-seeded Dallas was 18 of 34 from long range. And they won the winning game one on Saturday, and the fourth-seeded Clippers were led by Leonard, who scored 30 of his 41 in the first half. Paul George had 28 points and 12 rebounds. Game 3 is Friday in Dallas, where the Mavs will have several thousand more fans on hand that were loud at the Staples Center. The Clippers, who led the league 41 three-point shooting, went 13 of 33 from long range. They regained their touch in the fourth when they made 5 and twice cut their deficit to 4 points. But Josh Richardson made 4 straight free throws over the final 21 seconds to preserve the victory. George was just 1 of 7 from long range, and the Clippers made 11 three-pointers in Game 1. The Mavs dominated the third, outscoring the Clippers 30-19 to take a 102-92 lead into the fourth. They made 5 three-pointers, with Hardaway hitting 1 to open the quarter and Doncic hitting 1 to end it. In between, the Clippers missed shots, including George's miss on a wide-open dunk. George and Morris picked up their third fouls. And that is your news for today. That was sports. I am Kim Seabrook. We're on Millennium TV 24. Please make sure to watch us on all your smart TVs, and you can download the apps on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon, and please make sure to download the apps on your phones, your Android and your iPhones, and keep on watching us as we present the news to you, and entertainment, sports, topics, and community news, all that good stuff. So we are here for you. Again, I'm Kim Seabrook. We're Millennium TV 24. This was your news for today, and we will see you again. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.